Hello and welcome back to this low-level JavaScript series on building a 16-bit virtual machine from scratch. In this episode, we're going to begin building the assembly language Parser. There are a number of different challenges with writing a system like this. We're going to have to be able to understand if the code is not only syntactically correct, but also semantically correct. And we also have to be able to parse many different kinds of elements, including code and labels, imports, exports, structures, data initialization. The list goes on. But with any project, big or small, the only way to get it done is to take small steps. And the small step we're going to take today is to implement a parser for the move literal to register instruction. Now that might not sound like very much, but in order to be able to parse its more complex form, where we can use variables and expressions to specify the literal value, we're going to have to tackle a pretty tricky problem. One that highlights one of the biggest drawbacks of parser combinators and takes us into the world of finite state machines. And of course, if you don't know what parser combinators are, then you can check out the series I made all about that, links below in the usual places. Now, first things first, we can install the arcsecond parsing library with npm, then create a new folder for the assembler, parser, and the index.js file that we're going to start working in. To avoid requiring a huge number of parsers from arcsecond, I'm going to pull everything in as just capital A. So to parse the full instruction, we're going to need to parse all the individual parts. We've got the move instruction itself. This can be uppercase or lowercase. We have the literal hex values, register names, which can be uppercase or lowercase. And we have these square bracket expressions, which for now we'll say can contain literal hex values, variables starting with an exclamation mark, sub-expressions in brackets, and operators like plus, minus, and multiply. Let's start with a utility parser for getting strings which could be uppercase or lowercase. That's just a function taking a string s and returning the choice between s.to uppercase and s.to lowercase. Similarly, matching registers is a choice between all the different register names using our upper or lower string parser. Now, you'll remember from the episode Building a Language Parser and Interpreter of the Parser Combinator from Scratch series that when parsing a language, it's important that we wrap up all the parsed values in some kind of object that describes its type. We can do that easily with map. But since we'll have to do this a lot, let's make our lives easier and create another utility called asType, which is a curried function that takes first the type, then the value, and puts those things together in an object. Now we can use it in the register parser. Literal hex values are marked by a $sign, then a number of hex digits. A hex digit is just any digit 0 to 9 and any letter A to F, and we can specify that succinctly with a regex-based parser. So for our hex literal parser, we have to get a $character and then chain to capture many and at least one hex digits. We can map and join all of those captured hex digits together. Finally, we can map all of that to the hex literal type. And since this whole mapping and joining operation is quite common, we can extract that behavior to a function called mapJoin. We have pretty much everything we need for the basic version of the instruction parser. We're going to write this using arcsecond's coroutine parser, which you'll recognize as the contextual parser using generators that was covered in Parser Combinators from Scratch. First, we'll yield to the string mov. We don't assign it to a variable or anything because we don't need to keep it around. Then we'll yield any white space. Then we have the first argument of the instruction, which will be the hex literal. Again, any white space, then a comma, then any more white space, and finally a register argument. And I'll also capture and throw away any white space at the end. We'll do this as a convention in more complex parsers as a sort of neighborly gesture to the next parser that makes it a little bit easier for it. Now, to illustrate that this parser works, let's write a logging function that can show the full object tree. We'll require inspect from Node's util library and create a deep log function that logs to the console using inspect, but with the properties depth set to infinite and colors set to true. Now we log the result, And we can see that the result of the parser state is that we got an instruction whose value tells us it's a move literal to register instruction, and the arguments are a hex literal and a register. This tiny little object is the beginnings of our AST. But what about if we had the more complex form? In square brackets, we need to be able to capture expressions like this. If you've played around with parser combinators for a while, then you'll probably break the problem down like this. An expression in these square brackets could be as simple as a hex literal, but it could also be a variable, or it might be a whole expression encased in brackets. This is a recursive definition, or it might be a math operation. A math operation would take the form expression, operation, expression, where our operations are plus, minus, and multiply. So a math operation could be as simple as hex42 plus the lock variable. But since expr could actually be a whole other math operation itself, it could be something like 42 plus lock minus the bracketed expression hex5 multiplied by hex31, where this is the first expression, this is the op, and this is the second expression. Let's do an experiment. Imagine that we have this exact expression, and we're trying to parse it according to our definition. First, we try to recognize it as a hex literal, and you know what? We actually do. We've already completed parsing, but that's clearly not right, since we've missed almost everything. Now, we can try to fix this by putting the math operation as the first check instead of hex. Let's try again. We try to parse the expression. Okay, first we need to get a math operation. And the first part of a math operation is an expression. Let's check if it's a math operation. Of course, the expression part comes first, so we'll have to match that. So now let's see if we can get a math operation. Okay, I think you can probably see what the problem is here. No matter what we try to do with this recursive definition, how we rearrange these elements, we're going to run into ambiguities that we simply can't resolve. In this case, we're going to have to take a slightly different approach, and that approach will be a finite state machine. Now, a finite state machine is a powerful kind of logical construction where there is a limited number of states you can be in while completing an operation. The state you're in defines the actions you might take. As you take actions, you transition into new states, and by moving through the different kind of state transitions, eventually you hope to end up in the desired final state, where the operation is complete. A surprising amount of code that you already write, where you have multiple Boolean variables and many if statements, could just as well be expressed as a finite state machine instead. In order for us to use this idea in our parsers, we're going to have to create a utility parser called peek. Peek lets us look at what the next character is without consuming it, and can be easily constructed by using lookahead with a regex parser that always captures any single character. The only way this parser could actually fail is if we've reached the end of input. In our instruction parser, we can change arg1 to be a choice between square brackets and a hex literal, and then begin implementation of the square bracket expression parser. We're going to model this parser as a simple state machine. It's going to take the form of a coroutine parser, where we first get the opening square bracket character and then any optional whitespace. Then we're going to set up an array called expr, or expression, and that's going to hold the whole expression in the end, any hex literals, operations, anything in brackets. And we're also going to have a variable called state, which will hold one of the two possible states that we can be in while parsing. Those states, as well as how they interact, look something like this. When we start, we're going to be in the expect element state. In this state, we're going to be looking for either a literal hex value, a variable, or an expression in brackets. And we can capture that as a choice between a bracketed expression, a hex literal, or a variable. In all of those cases, we'd store the result and then enter the expect operator state. In that state, we'll assume that whitespace has already been helpfully consumed and will peek at the next character. If it's a closing square bracket, we're actually done parsing and we can move out of the state machine. Otherwise, we need to parse an operator, store the result of that, and move to the expect element state again, We go back and forth between these states, collecting elements and operators in turn until we find the final closing bracket, the end state. Let's return to the code and implement that. We can put our states inside an object, kind of like an enum, and we'll start in the expectElement state. A while true loop will allow us to easily process one state per iteration, and inside we'll set up some if statements for checking the two possible states. If we're in the expectElement state, the only possibilities are that we're capturing a bracketed expression, a hex literal, or a variable. We can push the result of that choice into the expr array and then set the state to expect operator. Finally, we'll helpfully consume any white space we find. We'll actually write the bracketed expressions and variable parsers shortly. For the expect operator state, we need to peek ahead and see if the next character is a closing square bracket. If it is, then we can consume the bracket character, any white space that follows it, and then break out of the while loop. If it's not, then we need to get an operator, and we'll push that into the expr array as well. Again, we'll fill this parser out shortly. We can set the state back to expectElement, consume any white space, and let the loop run for another iteration. All we need to do at the end is to return a type representing the square bracket expression and put the expr array as its value. Now for those parser definitions that we flew past. Operators are pretty straightforward. They're just a choice between plus, minus, and multiply mapped into a type. Variables are only marginally more complex. An exclamation mark followed by a valid identifier. And let's use a sensible definition for what a valid identifier might be. Let's say it's a sequence of first a character that could be a letter or an underscore, followed by many more characters, which might be letters, digits, or underscores. And since possibly can return null, we'll map it to an empty string in that case, and the whole parser will get wrapped in map join to make sure we get a single string at the end. And we can copy paste the hex literal parser, only changing the first character to an exclamation mark, changing the parser in chain to the valid identifier parser, and we'll map that into a type called variable. And that only leaves us with bracketed expression. And now that we've warmed up to state machines, in the next episode we'll be ready to take on this much more complex one that has 6 states, and actually a few more if you're being formal. Bracketed expressions are similar to square bracket expressions, except that they can have nested bracket expressions inside. In order to properly deal with that nesting, we'll have more states and more possible state transitions. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. A big thank you to all of the patrons who support this channel. If you'd also like to support this channel, you can consider liking this video and sharing it with a friend, or maybe even becoming a patron yourself by visiting patreon.com/lowleveljavascript. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.